Are you yearning to wake up each morning and ignite a new meaning and purpose in life and beyond? Welcome, everyone. I'm Michael McGinnis, an award-winning author, speaker, and educator on human potential, and your host on You Can Do It, Inspiring Growth, Igniting Potential. Life presents us with challenges that serve as catalysts for growth. The pivotal question is, how do we respond to these challenges? Or better yet, opportunities. Do we adopt a victim mindset or rise to become victors? Our goal here is to guide and inspire you to master the most amazing journey you have, your life. You Can Do It starts now. Good morning, everybody. Michael McGinnis here with You, meaning you can do it. It's a show is where if I can do it, Heather can do it, you can do this too. Well, today we're going to continue on in this series that we've been talking about retirement, right? This massively change in life phase that we've talked about in the last couple of sessions. And today we're going to zoom in on the discussion we had last week on that grief and loss model, the emotions of change. It's so important to cover these because it's not only the fact that there's an emotional process, it's how to deal with the emotions, particularly in a healthy way. And it's something that I know firsthand, that I experienced not only through this phase in life, but throughout life. In fact, the discussion today is going to be good. It's universal for any change in life, anytime we experience emotions. It's really important to learn how to manage emotions in a healthy way. But we're going to relate it to examples here, common examples here within retirement. And I'm going to share a couple of examples, act as if real scenarios that I experienced myself. And Heather, as really the coach does really well in this whole area of being able to help others, will respond sort of with some discussion about, what is likely going on here and what is some of the discussion that she would have. And then we'll have a little bit of additional commentary on this topic as well. So let's jump in. Heather, how are you?
Yeah, I'm wonderful, Michael. Thank you for asking.
Oh, you
Excited to
are
be back.
but you look angry.
I look angry.
No,
Uh,
I'm only kidding. Yes, that's as we get into the emotions, we're going to have to play the part, right?
I don't get angry very often, so that'll be a tough one for me.
That's good. That's great. That's good. But yeah, we'll talk about that too, actually, is just the emotions are natural parts of us, right? That's something that they normally do. And yet, for so many of us and related to society and everything, times we try to suppress them. And is that a healthy thing to do?
No, definitely not. As difficult as it can be for some of us to feel our emotions and express our emotions, it is so important that we do both of those.
Well said. And we're going to get into a little bit of discussion on it. This could be a 2, 3 hour topic in and of itself, easy, right, with respect to it today. But let's jump into it. So, the image that came from last week sort of shows this emotional process of grief and loss. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, as Heather mentioned last week, did this research really in working with those the death and dying. But as we found, this applies to any major change today. We even use this framework within the organizational setting as we were going through company changes, and to be able to prepare ourselves, particularly from a human resource perspective, for being able to work with these stages of emotions. But in this particular case, we're going to zoom in and focus on the topic of retirement, because retirement is, as I mentioned, one of these big changes and phases in life that we really need to navigate and work through. And every one of us will experience it a little bit differently, but there's some commonalities, particularly related to the stages of change that we had talked about last week and the emotional process as well. So I'm going to go through a couple of scenarios first, but Heather, any comments on your part before we jump in on just this whole process of managing emotions?
Yeah, I think, it was a great lead in to bring up that um, the whole 5 stages of grief again, because as you said, it's not just, even though that was created for death and dying, it applies to really any change that we're going through, even though we might not feel it's really, really significant. We feel like it's just supposed to happen. When you start feeling these emotions come up, it's a good trigger to say, I think I might be feeling some of those stages of grief in this change of life that I'm experiencing.
Now, well said. And as I may mention, I think last podcast is that I actually had this image up on my refrigerator. When I was going through high changes in my life, there were layoff scenarios, there was divorce, these major change scenarios that helped me remind myself that I'm going through change, and was able to remind myself, all of a sudden when I'm starting to cut off people in traffic or get angry, reactive, a large part of it is because I'm going through a major change. So let's step back and work through that process. And I'll be the first to admit, I approach coaching and counseling, going through these stages. It can be challenging to do, and well worth talking it through with others. So let's mimic that right up front over here too. Let's go through a couple of sort of sample scenarios, and let's first talk about this stage of shock and denial. Just before, as I started, is I was fortunate, I volunteered on ambulance. And one of the very first things they told us when we arrive at a scene of an accident is to understand shock and denial. Because what we'd often do is come to a scene of an accident, find people up and walking around, and so we would typically think, "Oh, let's avoid them and go to those who look hurt." But the reality is that within 60 seconds, there's a natural body response to sort of keep us from the pain, the shock, in effect. And then lo and behold, sure enough, they drop to the ground, right? So if we wanted to do it right, we had to go early on. It's the same thing with you. We want to treat these symptoms and understand them early on. So when I was first going through a scenario, one of the things that I had is that I experienced an early retirement. The company had changes, so to push out the door. Fortunately, we were eligible for an early retirement package. I was 61 at the time. And I came out, full intentions to be able to work again. It wasn't about retirement, but initially, the package came. I was out of work, and I was beside myself. I had no idea what to do. So if I'd approached Heather, which very similar to a scenario I did with my own coach, I would come in there and I really would have said, look, Heather, I'm out. I've been 40 years of working, and I'm sitting here idle-handed here. I really don't know what to do. I'm feeling beside myself, confused, a little bit lost. I had an alarm clock every day to sort of step me up, guide me to go forward. What do I do? I feel lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Michael. So, what you're experiencing is completely normal. And I would say that what you're experiencing is that loss of structure and purpose that's been in your life for decades. It's just naturally there. It was something that you didn't have to think about on a daily basis. And now all of a sudden it's gone. Right? You're experiencing this loss. You're beginning that grief cycle. Right? You've lost something significant in your life. And you've lost a lot of the needs, right? If we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the safety of what your employment and the resources there brought you. You had belonging with maybe your team. You felt like you were making an impact. The esteem that it brought you through maybe your achievements, being respected by others, and even that self-actualization, right? You were able to maybe be creative and your problem solving, or whatever you were bringing to the table, you were doing that every day. And so now that these key needs that have always been there are gone, right? You're like, what's happening? What am I doing? And so you're, like you said, you're experiencing that feeling of just being lost. So again, at the beginning of that grieving process, and the key there is, and you've said it already, is acknowledging your emotions, right? Taking that step back, what's going on in my life, making sure that you're feeling those emotions. And again, it can be challenging for some of us. For some people, it's like, I don't show emotion. No, no, no. And it's really important that we get comfortable with that and be able to acknowledge them and sometimes even just sit in them and think about, why am I feeling this way? What's coming up? Especially because you're in that, as you said, you weren't officially in retirement, but you were in that phase and you should be happy and be having the best time of your life. You have this opportunity to do whatever you want in front of you. And yet, why am I feeling this way? I can't be feeling this way, right? That shock and denial. This can't be happening to me. This isn't what's going on. But that,
Wow. That's very well said. And I mean, it's really, it made me zoom right back to that time as you were saying it, because just those last points too, because it is that in William Bridges model of change, it's the first stage is an ending and it's losses, right? And as much as we're trying to always look forward, we really have to first absorb that change and all of the changes that are part of it. That's excellent. And then there comes anger, right? Anger is this powerful stage and powerful emotion. And for me, the thing that I remember the most was this period of time. For me, it wasn't about retirement, right? So it was about an idea. I was a top performer in my field. I was 61, so I still had a lot of runway left. I felt I wanted to get back out there and finish my career, as you said, Maslow's hierarchy, to really self-actualize in my career. I was really achieving that. A few more things I really wanted to accomplish. And then I was out, and how I would have presented myself coming in is I'm beside myself. This is that I have been out there on top of my field, got a great resume, great background. People could check on my background and be incredibly impressed with all the elements that I did. Why is it that I can't get a job? I am applying to things, I am maybe getting a first reaction to it, and then boom, there's no contact. And now, as I'm hearing from some of my colleagues, they're all experiencing the same thing. What is going on?
Yeah. So you bring up a great point that I think a lot of us, no matter our age, we don't acknowledge that ageism exists. Even though it's illegal to be discriminated against because of our age in the workplace, ageism is there. It's alive and well. It's actually, I think I was reading, it's more prominent than racial discrimination, believe it or not. So when we encounter this, and you hit the nail on the head, here we are. We're like, wow, I am the stuff. Like, I got this. I can go get whatever job I want, and all of a sudden, you can't. And that feeling of, why doesn't somebody want me to belong to their company? Why doesn't somebody want me in this role? I mean, I can do wonderful things for them. And not realizing that they'd rather bring in somebody younger and say, well, I'm gonna train them and teach them our ways. We don't want somebody that might leave in 5, 7, 10 years. There's some other things there. They don't want to bring in somebody that might have set in their ways, if you will. But it's very frustrating because, as you said, you are beyond capable. Anybody would be lucky to have you. And while you've always been able to problem solve in this space, suddenly again, you can't, right? That anger is coming up. Why can't I fix this? Why can't these people see what they have in front of them? You push some blame on them. So of course, you're going to be angry. You're going to be irritated that they aren't giving you that chance. Maybe even anxiety of, what if I don't get hired? what if I can't find another job? Now what? So having that anger, again, very natural thing to go through. It is part of that grieving process. It's a step that's probably necessary, but acknowledging what's going on there again is very, very key.
Wow. And again, thank you for sharing it. It again brought me right back to, and because it felt like yesterday, really, in the conversation here. I was going through that phase, and it's a good conversation for a couple of parts because that's only one element, of anger, but also ageism. We live in a society today, and our particular society is not as age friendly as some other cultures in the world today, too. And we over time start to feel us, and I hear this all of the time from my peers and colleagues, others that are in this quote older age group, is where we feel pushed aside. We say, get out of my way. It's this fast-paced society, and it's been that way. It's not blame, it's just the way it is. And all of a sudden, we don't feel wanted or loved anymore. We want to get, it's that shoving and getting along the way. The other part of this that's really a good conversation is just the topic of anger itself. We in our society also don't support dealing with tough emotions in a healthy way, in my belief. And so things like anger, God forbid you go out today exhibit anger any place, you're immediately at fault. It's not tolerated anymore. And so where do we go? What do we do with these emotions when we feel them? And that's really important that we learn how to do that really within a healthy way. Couple minute thought on that?
Yeah, that's a great point. That our intolerance to these strong emotions, right? You're labeled as aggressive, or excuse my, but us women in leadership, we're bitchy. It's that's how we're seen if we get angry or firm, and it's not tolerated. Right? People suddenly don't like us. Um, and so I think it's not only an opportunity for us to say, I can't control other people's thoughts and feelings, whether they're getting angry or because of how they're reacting to my anger, but also to be comfortable expressing our emotions when we need to, finding a safe place, whether it's a family member, a close friend. Um, because as we were talking earlier, this can lead to health issues, right? Heart attacks. Keeping that anger can cause stress, and if we're suppressing it, it's definitely not helping us or anyone else in the long term.
No, well said. And that leads right into another emotion that we really have time for to cover today, and that's depression. As I learned, depression is anger turned inwards. And so, in other words, anger is something we experience. It's an energy that wants to get out. And then as it no longer works and we go through the bargaining stage and still nothing is happening, nothing changes, we go into depression and an internally felt emotion that can have very significant consequences as well. And in my particular case, uh, it was shortly into this phase of which I experienced a divorce. And I'm not going to get into details, no judgment in there, but nevertheless, it was a major life change. In fact, Dr. Riley Moynes talks about it in terms of his stage two, about a year into retirement, are the three Ds. And that's decline, divorce, depression, right? And so these are the kinds of things that lead to it because we've been we've been somebody for 40 years of a life. Our identities revolved around the roles that we've been, the parenting, and all these things. And as they disappear in life, we wonder who we are. We hear today too, and you could read about loneliness is epidemic amongst older people. And of course, that leads itself to a state of depression, of just simply being alone and alone turning into a loneliness. Thoughts, comments on depression?
Yeah. So first off, experiencing depression in retirement is completely normal. I think Halford Consulting has an article that they wrote and said that 1 in 3 retirees experience depression as they come to figure out this new lifestyle. So whatever you're feeling there, it's very common and completely normal. Again, you've made a significant transition in your life. You're mourning that loss of routine, the loss of maybe your sense of purpose, feeling like maybe you were forced out when you weren't ready to retire. You know, as you said at the beginning, you wanted to keep working. That was your intention. But all of a sudden, you know, you're in a place where that's just not happening. Even maybe leading a more sedentary lifestyle, that could be impacting both your physical and your mental health. I mean, studies show that movement and exercise is the number one antidepressant. So once you're not physically active and mentally doing mentally stimulating things, that can push us into depression even more, or those feelings of depression. And while it is important to mourn the loss of what you had so that you can move forward into, you know, that newfound phase of your life, you know, you still need to connect with your feelings and understand why they're coming up, not just push them aside and you know, think that they're not there. Another important piece during this time is to take care of yourself. Make sure you're not falling into any old habits or maybe new habits that aren't so healthy. People can get depressed and turn to, you know, drinking or smoking or any other, maybe just binge watching television is another poor habit to have at this stage of your life. And it's so easy to fall into that when you are in this, you know, depressive state. So seeking support, so key. You mentioned you did that yourself, Michael. You know, you reached out to coaches and counselors and found that support. It might be friends, family, or professional help. And the one thing that I do want to highlight is if you are in this state, you find that you're lingering here and you're just really down for longer than, say, 2 weeks, and you note that you're experiencing signs of depression, definitely seek professional help. So I think Emily will put the signs of depression up on the screen for the viewers to take a look at that. And just if you feel any of that, definitely reach out for help, because once you get into these phases, they can be hard to get out of.
Oh, so well said. And Heather, thank you very much for that conclusion, because it's so important to know, as this is with any emotion in any point in time in your life, it's normal, natural, and feeling overwhelmed. And I know the state of depression and how that could lead to really severe and significant depression, and how that could even lead to end of life scenarios of suicide and other things. And so it's very, very, very important that you yourself, you know, recognize this phase of how you're feeling, and definitely, as you said, seek professional help. I'm not a professional help, so seek the professional help of coaches, counselors, doctors that'll be able to help you through these situations. Don't think of that as a weakness. Think of it actually as a strength. That really is a strength, to honor and recognize what you're going through, you know, and it's hard because, again, when we're depressed, we don't think that way. But really, I would say take that moment and say, you know what? I am worth taking care of myself. I am worth getting help. And then seek the help and get the help that you need.
Yeah, definitely.
So everybody, that's fantastic. And again, it would be wonderful to have more time to talk about this topic. But the key thing is not only does this relate to retirement, it relates to life. And my whole topic, which has been the topic of my podcast, is about achieving your full potential. This all applies because we're all going to hit walls. And it's in the walls, and it's using that sort of analogy that's so often used, that of a marathon. Like the people that run marathons, they hit along the way a lot of walls of where the body just says it wants to stop. Well, I consider also challenges in life to me in these emotional stalls that we get in life, the tough times that we experience and the endings and the losses that we experience. Resilience is really built by being able to acknowledge these times and then dealing with them in a healthy way. And I think that's a secret too that we want to make sure is out to everyone is that don't let it be a secret. Just know it is. Now, I know other people won't like to be around you because you're angry and depressed on that. And that's why sometimes we have to go and get professional help. But nevertheless, get the help that's needed. You are worth it because at the end of this is the opportunity to sort of start that new cycle, right? That transition phase and then ultimately into the acceptance. And that's why I am now within this retirement phase, this active retirement phase, is really finding myself like a kid in a candy store. What's next? What do I want to find? I was just last week enjoying myself in Yosemite. Wow, I had an opportunity to travel, right? What a fortunate thing close by. Here's this national park I've never been to before. And just these opportunities that we have in this phase of life to really to be able to enjoy things that we may have never experienced while we were so busy in life. And then along the way, when you hit the bumps, whatever phase you're in, it's great that there's people like Heather out there that can really be able to be that listening ear to you, to what's going on, help you, encourage you. And along with that is a whole host of the professional and medical community out there to be able to help you as well. Any closing thoughts, Heather, on your part?
Michael, I just you hit on the work of Dr. Riley Moynes to ultimately find that new purpose and meaning in life, and it sounds like that's where you're at. So congratulations.
Yeah, again, Dr. Riley, Riley, Moynes, Moynes, I think it is. Or I'm pretty sure. But he's on YouTube. There's great content. He does TED Talk, but now he's talking in all of these financial seminars that are inviting him in because even they're realizing not just about finances, it's really about the psychological impact that goes along with this change in life. So definitely review his work. We'll probably even talk a little bit more about those stages because it's so powerful and so important on there. Well, we're at the end of this time, so be sure to come back. We're going to continue our dialogue here, at least for a couple of more sessions on retirement. And love to have your comments and commentary and ideas and questions. And along that way is just remember, is that life itself brings challenges. And so when you hit those bumps in life, just realize that it's okay. And from that, if it's something that you're struggling with, always seek help and assistance of a professional. So with that in mind, go out there and have a great day. Enjoy life. And then as you begin to come to this phase in life, find ways to even enjoy it even more. Everybody, Michael McGinnis, Heather, signing off. Have a great day. I'm Michael McGinnis, and you've been listening to You Can Do It, Inspiring Growth, Igniting Potential. Tune in every second and fourth Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Transformation Talk Radio. As a recognized educator, author, and speaker on human potential, let's learn together how to make the most out of this life and to put a ding in your universe. This is the incredible journey of personal and spiritual growth, self-discovery, and enlightenment. For more information, visit growhumanpotential.com.